Welcome, everybody, to the Waiver Wire Show. Brian McFadden, joined here by Kevin Phillip Fox. We're here with Legit Football to bring you the waiver wire picks that you need to help win your fantasy league this week. Kevin, week 5, we're done with like a quarter of the season. What happened? How are we here already?
Dude, I don't know, man. I blinked and we're a quarter of the way through the season. I don't like it, man. Slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. All right.
I'm with you there. NFL script writers, can we pump the brakes a little bit, all right? Because we're enjoying it, but it feels like a rocket ship already. All right, if this is your first time on the show, we keep it short and sweet. We're going to recap Kevin and I's waiver wire recommendations for last week, and we're going to each go position by position on who we really like as pickups this week. We'll get you in and out of 20 to 25 minutes so that you can go ahead and make those claims and hopefully win your weeks. Kevin, are you ready to get started? Week 5.
Born ready, Brian. I'm so ready. And I love seeing people in the chat. Shout out to all of y'all. Keep it coming. Keep the love coming. We do waiver wire questions at the end. So if you have any waiver wire questions, submit them. We'll be getting to them at the end.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kevin. Yeah, so we save Q&A for the end. Our fantasy Q&A show, we'll plug that really quickly and we'll plug it up against the show. That's on Thursdays. We just take questions for a whole hour on fantasy. But for the waiver wire show, we're just here to get you the waiver wires so you can go ahead and make those claims tonight. If we have a little bit of time at the end, save your questions for then. All right, Kevin, let's start with week 4 waiver wire recap. Recapping who we picked.
Good and bad. Yeah.
Good and bad. We both had some hits and misses. We'll start at the quarterback position. I'll go ahead and say it. I had Jameis Winston. He didn't even play.
Hey, he did. He came in and threw a pick.
He threw one interception. Yeah, but it was a surprise that Carr was everybody, all the Twitter doctors. He could miss a game, maybe 2 or 3. No, Carr actually ended up suiting up and starting. Did not look good.
He shouldn't have played.
Shouldn't have started.
Looked like crap.
So, I mean, I hope you picked up Winston because maybe they'll sit Carr and I don't know. But I'll just take that as a swing and a miss. And Kevin, you had CJ Stroud. You can take that as a nice.
You know I'm a huge Texans truther, man. I'm on cloud 9 right now. All my victory lapping I've been doing with the Texans looking so sharp, and Stroud being the dog that he is, getting stats, man, and not just garbage time, like real stats. Shout out to CJ Stroud, man.
Yeah, it's amazing when you have a talented quarterback with a good scheme, good play caller, and weapons around you.
Yep.
All of that, and you see some of these other situations around the league. I'm looking at you, Chicago Bears. When you have the same thing, a very talented quarterback in a bad situation with bad play calling, you see what happens.
Yep.
So, hey, if CJ Stroud is still somehow on your waiver wires, please go pick him up. We're not going to recommend him anymore because he should be rostered at this point.
Oh, yeah, and started. He's close to must start. One of those fringe QB ones right now.
Moving on to the running back position. You recommended Roschon Johnson. Thought it was a wonderful pick, but the Bears decided, we're just going to give him just a handful of touches that he had. Let's see, I've got the stats here somewhere.
The pendulum kind of swung the other way. It swung back to Herbert again, which we've all kind of seen with our eyes that Roschon is the superior back. Herbert's not a bad player, so I'm not like, that's not that big of a deal. I think he's still a stash. I wouldn't drop him if it didn't work out right away. But definitely a bit disappointing to see that Roschon didn't even really get an opportunity. But Brian,
22% snap share,
not
really
great.
Surprised me. But I think we'll see better days ahead for Roschon.
Victory lap time for you though.
He's real.
Achane.
It wasn't a one-hit wonder. Devon Achane.
It's the hardest thing to get.
It takes some training. Devon Achane. He's told us all how we should pronounce it. Another 100-yard game.
On 8 carries.
Yeah.
He is
averaging 12.63 yards per carry, 60% snap share. This was more interesting to me. He had a bigger snap share than Raheem Mostert in this game. 120 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, he just has a cool 6 touchdowns across 2 games. No big deal.
No biggie. And Mostert, I've said this before, his vacation home is the IR. So Devon Achane is...
And he's 31. He's as good as Mostert has been. He's still 31.
And he's going to be good. He'll be okay. He'll have a lot better games than he had against Buffalo. But Achane is not going anywhere, barring injury, knock on wood, because he's little, but,
Moving on to the wide receiver position, we both recommended LA Chargers. Neither one had a monster game, but it was Josh Palmer over Quentin Johnson, who got far and away the majority of the snaps. Actually, Josh Palmer led the team in yards. Keenan Allen had a little bit of an off game. He had 8 targets, only 3 receptions, but 77 yards. 25.67 yards per reception. Quentin Johnston, he's a rookie, little raw.
Yeah.
Not a bad stash, especially with Mike Williams out. But for now,
urgency
Palmer is the guy there.
Oh, yeah. Palmer's definitely more rosterable in fantasy right now. Doesn't seem to be a lot of urgency to get Quentin Johnston going, which I'm a little surprised by, especially with the Mike Williams injury. He kind of has that archetype a little bit. Deep
He's
threat,
such a different, but he's a different player.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
That's what I was always, interested about. He looks like he should be a deep threat 50-50 guy, but he's not. He's a yak guy.
Yeah, he's never been
Get
a
him in
contested
space,
catch
even
guy.
though he's a tall guy.
Yeah.
So something to keep an eye on. But for now, Josh Palmer is the second
Definitely.
receiver that you should be rostering on that Chargers offense.
Yeah.
Tight ends, we both just absolute swing and a miss. Mine
injuries for both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct,
so
correct.
Not really. It is what it is, right? Like that's fantasy for you.
I actually still like Musgrave as somebody you should have on your roster. He was getting heavily targeted going into this game. Got a concussion on his first reception.
Yep.
So 1 catch for 1 yard, but then he got concussed and he was out for the game. So
horrible. I told Joey Crack in the chat, I told him to start Musgrave over Everett, who also was a dud.
That's good. That's good advice. That's
good advice. I feel good about it. Well, in Parham, 1 target and a sprained wrist. So welcome to
fantasy.
Can't
predict that. Injuries. I feel, I know it's every year, but it feels like the injury bug is even higher this year. Am I imagining that? It is.
No, it's
there's some very high profile injuries. I think that's what it is. And finally, the defenses we recommended, maybe my biggest swing and a miss. I did not see the Tennessee freaking Titans, who we said was 31st in total offense, putting up 27 points against the Bengals. They still managed, let's see, I got it here. 6 fantasy points. It's not like they had a 0 or negative, but I expected it to be a dominant performance. Instead, the Bengals got dominated by Tennessee. You, on the other hand, picking a Chargers defense, Kevin, that had been porous to say the least, and they come out and put an absolute whooping on the Raiders.
I just think the Raiders might be that matchup to target, to be honest with you. I
Raiders
think their O-line is, I think their O-line is just dog water. I think Khalil Mack, oh my goodness, what a performance. 6 sacks, right? 1 shy of the NFL
6
record.
6 sacks, correct.
He's like a third of the fantasy
team. 6
points.
of those were Mack. Yeah.
So a lot of love there for the Chargers pick. Definitely a home run, I would say. So we'll just keep it rolling. We'll just keep doing what we do. Brian, process over results. We got some dogs up in here, so we're going to keep it going. Today's show is Chef's Kiss. I'm confident these are all locks.
Yeah. We're always confident.
I always am.
They turn out not to be. All right. Without further ado, let's move into the Week 5 waiver wire picks for the waiver wire show of the week. We'll start at quarterback. Kevin, who you got this week?
Yeah. So my QB for Week 5 is definitely scraping way down at the bottom of the barrel, and I feel really good about it. Actually, believe it or not, last 3 starts, he's had no fewer than 19 fantasy points in standard scoring, 4-point passing touchdowns. I'm looking at Josh Dobbs, quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals. Who would have thought? He's got that dog in him. He's absolutely not this, scab QB that everybody was joking around about when they traded for him in early August. He's really he's got moxie, he's got heart, and he's not bad, and he's looked good in every start he's ever had. He looked okay with Tennessee last year, and he's putting it together. Like I said, no fewer than 19 points, and he plays the Cupcake. Correct me if I'm wrong. Who do they play this week? It was a matchup I really liked. Is it the Panthers?
No, it's not Carolina. I can't remember who they play.
It was a team I felt really good about. The Bengals. I feel like he's going to put up the middle of the pack against quarterbacks. So they're a mess. We talked about it pre-show. I don't know if they're even a good team. So I like Josh Dobbs to continue his streak of 19 plus fantasy points. Solid streamer. I'm going to be streaming him.
Floor with his legs. He's, making plays with his legs, which is always nice to see, especially for a streaming quarterback, because that gives you a higher floor.
Yep.
Josh Dobbs is a baller.
Yeah.
I got to say.
Who would have thought?
I do think this Arizona team is clearly coached well, but like you said, Dobbs was showing up in Tennessee. Looked like one of the best options they had at quarterback in that one game that he started last year.
Yeah.
So mine, as you can now see on the screen, is quarterback Sam Howell. Completely erased against Buffalo, but came back against a very tough Eagles defense to put up 19.6 fantasy points, 280 yards passing, 1 touchdown throwing, and 40 rush yards. We just talked about with Josh Dobbs having that rushing floor. A lot of people don't realize that Sam Howell has got some mobility to him, and he gets the Bears defense in Week 5. So you don't have to make Sam Howell your season-long starter, but if you have a guy on bye, we are in bye week territory now, Kevin. Off the top of my head, Browns on bye, Chargers, Justin Herbert. Sam Howell, you could do worse than streaming him or Josh Dobbs in week 5.
Yeah, and I'm actually in the same position as Joe in the chat. I have Geno Smith. I have a waiver bid in for Josh Dobbs. That's the beauty of the show. I always tell Brian, because there will be times when he'll be like, "Oh, this is low-hanging fruit." Like, I left the cupcake pick for you, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm going with what's on the waiver wires in my league. I'm trying to be as real as I can for the people. I'm trying to put them in my shoes." So, Josh, I'm doing it, you guys. I'm in the trenches with you on the Josh Dobbs pick, and if Howell was available, Brian, trust me, I would probably pick him over Dobbs if I had to.
Yeah, for this building on what you just said, I typically put claims in on the guys that I recommend on this show. This is not just for entertainment.
We're living it.
I even shared the link with one of my league mates with my longest running league. So shout out to Rob if he's actually watching or listening to this, because I'm about to reveal a guy that I already put a claim in on.
No.
But this is not a surprise. He's if you're in sleeper, he's a number 1 trending free agent pick. This is a guy I've been on since the offseason, a guy no one had heard of, but I just loved his story. I loved his game. We're going to the running back position. I'm talking about Jaleel McLaughlin, and you can check, Kevin. I drafted him in our startup league. I have him in every single dynasty league, and he was a stash. Yeah. I'll admit I didn't expect him to pop this early, but he led the NFL in touchdowns in the preseason. He's like 5'7", 190 pounds. He's a super small guy, but Youngstown State, get this, Kevin, he is the all-time NCAA rushing yards leader. All time. I just love this guy's story. And so I made sure to stash McLaughlin. I have him in I think one of my redrafts. I just kind of I had a big bench, so I put him on there. So I will be putting claims on him as much as I can. Look, Javonte Williams is injured, but I think McLaughlin's going to have pop. He scored a rushing touchdown earlier this year when Williams was perfectly healthy. But here's some stats for you. RB10 in week 4, 104 total yards and only 10 touches. You talked about that with Achane. Averaging 6.9 yards per touch on the season, not just in this game. 2 touchdowns already, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. And Javonte could miss. If he misses, they were giving McLaughlin a lot of that early down work while just peppering Pirine in. Slam dunk for me.
Yeah, I think McLaughlin has completely taken that Pirine role that we were all expecting Pirine to occupy, and the change of pace role beyond Javonte. And even Javonte, he hasn't looked like Javonte this year. He's coming back from an ACL tear. That's to be expected, but and it was a lot faster than people thought. So I'm still on the give Javonte some time train, but McLaughlin is establishing himself as might have standalone value regardless of Javonte's status with the way that he's playing. He's got juice, Brian.
At the very least in Dynasty, pick this guy up. I do think I kind of compared him to an Austin Eckler type, and that Eckler did not really get a lot of starting experience until he was a few years in, but you can see the talent, especially as a pass-catching back. He's actually very similar size. Look, Eckler is jacked, so he's a little bit more muscular, but Eckler is not that much larger than McLaughlin. Undrafted running back from a small school. The profiles are very similar. Love his work ethic. You can read all sorts of articles in Denver Broncos beat writers saying about McLaughlin's the first one in there at 5 a.m. but actually working. And so you guys know I love my Tank Dell and all that, but McLaughlin is my super secret that is not so secret anymore.
Oh yeah, no, his breakout was televised. He's definitely somebody. Keep your eyes peeled. If he's on your waiver wire, grab him. Mine's again deeper, more of a stash. I don't really think you can start this player right now, but Ronnie Rivers of the LA Rams is really the only other rosterable running back on the LA Rams in fantasy. I mean, Cam Akers is gone. Kyron Williams, he did have 100% of snaps 2 weeks ago. So I was looking at Rivers then as sort of
he still has almost all the touches that can't hold, I think.
Right.
And
I agree.
He's actually not all that efficient, but he's getting so many opportunities and he's getting the touchdowns. And look, he's been a fantasy darling, but I like this. I like the idea of stashing Rivers. Either
sneaky.
Kyron is getting so much usage that he ends up getting banged up, or the Rams are going to say, we need to spread the love a little bit and getting a guy like Rivers involved.
Yeah, and I think that I definitely think that this is like I
Very
said, the only
valuable handcuff. Maybe
the
one of the more valuable handcuffs with how much usage
yes,
Kyren Williams is
efficiency.
getting.
McVay loves his workhorses. So, but again, if you need a start, you got to go McLaughlin. It's almost all or nothing McLaughlin. I don't know if there's another starting option on waiver wires. I mean, you could keep taking a stat. This is again, I love to do my little 2-for-1 special. If it's like in a pinch, grab like Latavius Murray and just hope he gets he's a dart throw touchdown play. He's like a touchdown dependent, like sort of like those
Or
tight end
Damian
plays.
Harris for that matter. One of those. I mean, they're
Right.
kind of
Because
interchangeable.
they're both probably low roster percentage right now because they're not
Yep.
really getting consistent work. But the Bills are going to get down there. They're gonna. So that's like my if you need a start or McLaughlin, obviously, but Rivers is like a stash for sure.
Yeah, one last thing I'll say, Javonte Williams could miss up to 2 weeks or he could miss no time. Like
It's true. Yeah.
it's kind of all over the board. I think no matter what, he's not going to be 100%. McLaughlin will get touches even if Williams plays, especially after the performance he had. So go ahead and put in a claim for him.
Definitely.
Kevin, let's move on to the wide receiver position.
Yes, sir. And I'm looking at the trash heap that is the New York Giants. Oh my goodness, how stupid do I feel for believing in them all off season? I still do a little bit. It's waning.
I don't think it's Dable's. I mean,
I don't think so either. I love him, and I
you
think
saw him throwing that the iPad. Yeah,
yeah, it's real. No, the dimes distress is real. But I'm looking at wide receiver
he's
Wandale
duds.
Robinson.
Danny
Yeah,
duds if he
Danny
plays like
Duds.
this. You can't call him
Yeah.
dimes.
No, not anymore. I'm looking at wide receiver Wandale Robinson because, oh my goodness, Darren Waller, the supposed target vacuum, is a vacuum in the other way. It's empty. There's nothing in it.
So surprising.
And Wandale in 2 games, he had 5 opportunities his first game back from an ACL tear, 6 last night, and he's got pop, Brian. He looks like he looked before the ACL tear.
Yep.
I've always liked him. He was somebody I was very in on last year. The ACL tear came in his breakout game. He had double-digit receptions in that game. And now he's trending
and over
towards
100 yards. He looked like a stud wide receiver one before he got injured.
And he's trending towards that workload again. And like I said, 5 opportunities and 6 opportunities in a Daboll offense where it's very creative and there's going to be schemed looks. Jalen Hyatt is boomer bust deep play.
They're also just not throwing to him. They're not using Hyatt. It's so
Darius
strange.
Slayton is only a deep threat. Isaiah Hodgins might be a flash in the pan, might be a fraud. Unfortunately, I was a big fan of his.
But Wandale's getting more snap share. I mean, he's literally getting more opportunities.
I don't know if there's this Paris Campbell. I'm sorry, again, crap that I was hearing in the offseason is just, again, ridiculous. It's Wandale or bust for me, and I think it's time that somebody emerges from the trash heap because let's call it what it is.
I completely agree. Although, to be fair, and I love Wandale Robinson's talent, I kind of don't want any piece of the Giants offense right now, short of Saquon when he gets back and healthy. Yeah. So I love the talent. Like you said, he looks more. My concern was I think it would be a ramp up period, but he's actually looking pretty quick, which I like to see, and I loved his talent. So once again, and if for some reason somebody dropped him in Dynasty for sure, absolutely go ahead and pick up Wandale Robinson. Michael Wilson, another rookie wide receiver that I was high on, also got him in our startup league. You'll notice.
I love Michael Wilson.
I'm backing up my words here.
Yep.
I loved his talent, but I also loved his opportunity because there was just not a lot of other pass catchers in Arizona, and we saw all of that come to fruition this week. Wide receiver 6 in total for week 4, 7 receptions on 7 targets, 76 yards. And 2 touchdowns, averaging 81 receiving yards per game over the last 2 games. This is now 2 games in a row where he's averaging about 80 yards. And he is the clear number 2 wide receiver in Arizona after Hollywood Brown. Rondale Moore, definitely still more of like a gadget guy. He's going to get the opportunities. Arizona's going to be playing from behind. If not on the Michael Wilson train, you need to get on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He would have been my pick as well. I was really happy to see he was already submitted, so I could, I love Wandale, so I was happy to shine the light over there. But that's a great pick, Brian. He's
you got to get your waiver picks in earlier. Like I get all the I claim all the spots.
This is great because then, like I said, I get to defer, I get to go deeper, which I love. But it's a great pick and it pairs well with my Dobbs pick. I think you do a little 2-pack there, throw the stack in there, the waiver wire stack. If you got like the Geno and Metcalf stack or whatever, and you need replacements at both, you could do a lot worse.
Michael Wilson I'm in 2 DFS leagues, won both of them this week because Michael Wilson got me 2 touchdowns in my flex position.
Love that, Brian. We're crushing it. These are good picks.
Let's take our dart throws at tight end every single week. That's what it's going to be. I'll start off by saying I actually think this guy's a little less of a dart, though, because he's getting volume. Look, the tight end position, such a crapshoot. Go with the guy who's getting a lot of attention and regular targets. And for me, that is Jake Ferguson from Dallas. He is getting 7 targets in 3 out of 4 games. So this is not a guy who like catches a touchdown here and there. And the one game he had less than 7 targets, he did score a touchdown. So he has been a consistent fantasy contributor in a very good Dallas offense. Tight end 4 this week, Kev. Tight end 8 on the season. This guy's a top 10 tight end. He's still on the majority of waiver wires out there. Also trying to put a claim in on him because I had Luke Musgrave starting this week and lost badly. Not just because of my tight end, but clearly I need an upgraded tight end. And his yards per target has increased every week. So he went from getting kind of like these low depth targets from Dak Prescott to now they're stretching the field a little more with him. That makes me even more excited for where his ceiling could be.
Yeah, you gotta love Ferguson, and he's got the talent, man. Like he was always, I believe there was actually a legit headline about him this summer, about his catch percentage and his route running percentage, and Dallas clearly believes in him. And yes, they drafted Luke Schoonmaker early, but hasn't really materialized into anything. So I'm not at all mad at this pick, Brian. I think it's a great pick. I want pieces in that offense. It's a good offense. It's an offense that on the whole they haven't really turned it on because they haven't needed to.
Yeah. The defense has just been so good.
They're 3-1, and it's really hard to even say that we know what they are. And like, especially like Dak, like, I mean, he's played it so safe, and if he's going to be checking it down, tight ends and running backs are what you want. And if outside of CeeDee Lamb, I think Jake Ferguson is probably the best option in that passing game. So
I see you have a Falcons tight end here.
Oh, this makes me so nauseous. And
but not the Falcons tight end that everybody's been talking about for the last 3 seasons.
I'm so thankful that the Pitts Burns, like they happened to me so early in my fantasy career that like he's been one of those like he's been on my fade list for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm divested. I have 0 shares of Kyle Pitts. I wasn't going to touch him.
Same. Year. And we're looking at his backup tight end, the one that they traded at a 6th round pick for or something like that.
Yeah.
6 for 90, Brian. 6 for 90. Okay. It is what it
Comes from Tennessee, where Arthur Smith is familiar with him.
He's a great talent.
Trust Jonnu Smith.
Jonnu Smith's a great talent. I mean, I loved the signing.
There was a time when maybe not on Kyle Pitts level, but Jonnu Smith was supposed to be the next big yards after catch tight end.
I really liked when the Pats signed him. I was really angry because I wanted him to be a Bill, and it ended up not materializing. He ended up going to the Patriots instead. They misused him like they tend to do with all offensive personnel. And boom, here we are. He's in Atlanta putting up numbers in spite of Kyle Pitts and in spite of all the angry mob of fantasy football people with their pitchforks. I'm sorry, but like, it is what it is. He's worth a dart throw. I was thinking about Musgrave. I don't know if he would have hit our roster qualifications, but he's another name. Again, like if he's not rostered in your league, I've seen him around. Not a bad idea to throw him in. Yeah,
I'm a believer in Musgrave. Yeah, like I said, I started him this past week. So not only did I recommend him, I started him in one of my redrafts. So once again, backing up where my words are. Let's close it out by talking about our defensive streamers. Who are you streaming if they're available on the waiver wire in week 5?
There's a lot of questionable, there was a lot of talk about this defense being questionable coming into the season, but they've really turned a corner. I'm looking at the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell's got that unit playing inspired football. They made mincemeat of the Green Bay Packers last week, and they're playing the 0-4 Panthers and a rookie QB, Bryce Young, who kind of looks the most rookie-ish out of all the rookies, I'll say. We
just talked about you starting the Chargers against the Raiders as just just start the Panthers. I said the same thing. So
got to play the matchup, and so I think that the Lions could be feasting against the Panthers. I'm looking 3+ sacks, 2 turnovers, and probably at least double-digit fantasy points, maybe more, because they got some ball hogs that can take it back. So yeah, that's a no-brainer, plug and play for me.
So this is a defense that there's actually a somewhat decent chance they're not available, but in the leagues that I'm in, for whatever reason, they are on the waiver wire. So I use that as my criteria. That's the Baltimore Ravens. They are the number 7 overall defense on the season, and they get the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they're either going to have a hobbled Kenny Pickett, who has a bone bruise, and Pittsburgh is on bye week 6, so there's a decent chance they sit him. So either they get a hobbled Kenny Pickett in an offense that has already been one of the worst in the NFL, or they get Mitch Trubisky, So either way, and I know the Ravens have a lot of injuries, but it didn't stop them going up against the Browns last week. Yes, I know they had Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting, but still that Ravens defense has played inspired. They've been consistent all year long. This is another one of those no-brainer picks to me going up against a Steelers offense that even if they were at full health, I'd probably still stream the Ravens here.
Yeah, the Steelers might be a matchup to target as well, unfortunately. Preseason hype aside, they have just looked so average on offense this year.
They need a new offensive coordinator. Plain
honestly,
everybody sees that except Tom.
Yeah, that feels like something we've known for a long time. So, but it is what it is. I love the pick. The Ravens defense. I swear to God, I've started watching every football game. I was 9 years old, and I feel like 04. I've not seen the Ravens have a bad defense in that whole 20 years, basically. Honestly, it feels like
That's
always
a nice legacy to have.
They are a freaking wonderful. They're just well coached and they know what they're doing. I love it. I love the pick. Low hanging fruit against Matt Canada, and mine might be lower with the 0-4 Panthers, but both those teams will, I think, be out on some waiver wire. So I think those are the top streaming options for sure.
All right, that is it. Those are our Week 5 waiver wire picks from Kevin and I. We'll be back next week to recap just how well we did with our picks. We mentioned earlier, make sure to check out our fantasy Q&A show. It's at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, an hour-ish before Thursday Night Football. It's myself, Kevin Phillip Fox, and Rich Jodice, the Pro Football Demon, just answering an hour of questions. Starts it, trade advice, rankings, whatever you want to throw at us. We're happy to answer it.
Yeah, I don't know that I love the fantasy Q&A show, and I really hope that everybody comes and joins. Joe, Mitchell, Armand, everybody from the chat, please come and join us for fantasy Q&A. It's like one of the most fun times that I have on these podcasts. Brian, myself, and Demon get real fun. It's probably the most unbuttoned we get. It's Demons just brings that out of people. I think he's just kind of a jokester, and he's really funny. But we got a lot of love last week for the depth in the analysis, I think, and I'm proud to wear that badge, that we're like that kind of a show. Like, we rip it open, we give you the why. I did see 2 comments, Brian, that pose themselves as questions.
Let's do it. Let's take the next maybe 2 minutes to answer some Q&A questions.
Mr. Joe wants to know if he should either start or claim. I don't know what the nature of this question is, but Curtis Samuel or Josh Downs this week. What do you think, Brian?
I don't have the matchups in front of me.
Let's take a look.
Let's take a look at that.
Let's rip this open. So the Commanders are playing the Bears. So Curtis Samuel is interesting. But Josh Downs, we talked about him on last week's show. I don't think he was anybody's official pick, but we did mention his name. I think the Colts
going up against the Titans. It is in Indy. I will say the Titans have played well at home, not so good on the road. Downs is getting more volume, more targets. Samuel is the third wide receiver, whereas Downs is he may not be getting a lot of deep targets, but he's had games where he's had 7-8 targets in this Colts offense. So I think Curtis Samuel has more touchdown upside, but if you're going for volume, full PPR, I kind of like the Downs play.
I do too, actually. Yeah, full PPR, I like the Downs play as well. But Samuel, man, you had Sam Howell as your waiver QB, and there's got to be some love to be spread, right? In order for I don't hate either play, but I think gun to my head, I'm taking Downs. And then this again, Mitchell here asked about Jeff Wilson. What's your concern level, Brian, with Jeff Wilson coming back? No, you're shaking your head. I might feel differently. Are you don't think he's going to have a role?
If it is, it'll be minor. They're not looking to rotate 3 to 4 running backs in there. They have Salvin Ahmed, who they like, but it's not like he's getting play almost like just to spell the other 2 running backs. Achane is the draft pick, right? So keep that in mind too. This is a draft pick for this regime. Jeff Wilson and Mostert they brought over from San Francisco. Wilson will probably get some goal line work. I can see that's really his specialty. He's a little bit more of a kind of tough between the numbers runner, more than Mostert and Achane, who are more straight line speed. And Achane is very shifty as well. I just think he does it all. So I think you could see a little bit of that short yardage work, but that's it. I think they like what they've seen out of Mostert. They really like what they've seen out of Achane, and they're going to want to keep those 2 guys on the field. They offer the biggest upside, and the speed in this offense is very important.
Yeah, one of the main reasons I bring it up is because I'm in a 16-team double flex, so it gets real ugly on the waiver wire. And I've actually been IR stashing Wilson since week 1.
But that's a little different. If you're in a 16-team league, anybody that could possibly score a touchdown should be on your roster. And Wilson will, I think, get some of that short yardage work.
I do just wonder because, I kind of thought about Mostert and Wilson in a similar tier, in a similar vein prior to the season. Mostert's explosion has just reestablished him as like one of those. I mean, we've always known about his speed, but like his talent is there. Like he's been an RB1 in this league before. He was an RB1 for San Francisco. He can be an RB1. Achane ain't going anywhere, barring health. So Wilson, Mitchell, I guess maybe I would say like if you're interested in stashing Wilson, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. Unless
I
it's
would
deep.
not pick him up. I think both Mostert and Achane have had such good seasons so far. I just don't see the Dolphins heavily, but why would they heavily involve Wilson at this point?
Yeah, it's almost kind of like a Bills, Harris, Murray, Cook situation.
Correct.
Like,
I was thinking of that. I was thinking Achane, I think, is the James Cook role now. I think he's getting the majority of everything, but they're going to do some short yardage. They're going to spell him with Mostert, although I don't think it's 50-50, kind of like Harris and Murray. I do think Mostert will get more than Wilson. Wilson will just be like the third back out.
I think you're right. And then I think it looks like last question we got here. Should Joey Crack keep Jamal Williams stashed or scoop McLaughlin? He has Kamara, kind of functions as a handcuff. Brian,
I know which way I'm going.
I think I know which way you're going too.
I'm going McLaughlin here, man.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, Kamara looked really good. He came back to his full workload and he killed it. Kendry Miller was
13 receptions for only 33 yards, but like clearly they gave him a heavy workload from the start.
And Kendry Miller was basically, an afterthought. So you might. This is sort of like having, a house, but it's like you have great insurance, or having 2 houses. If McLaughlin ends up being as good as Kamara, so I would go for the upside swing, Brian, that you're talking about. That's what we do with stashes. We talk about it all the time. If you're going to have a stash, make sure it's an upside stash.
Javonte Williams, all running backs are prone to injuries, but coming off the ACL, it can endanger other muscle groups, right?
Yeah.
So hip in his case, groin, hamstring, all of those can be kind of auxiliary injuries. So I don't think this is the last time that Williams has some sort of stinger. He rushed back, and he's young, he's healthy, fine, but he did rush back. So I think McLaughlin's going to have a lot of opportunities with or without him in there. I just think the ceiling's a lot higher. Drop Jamal Williams, scoop McLaughlin.
I agree with Brian here, and the chances are he'll still be there unless he has a breakout game. So keep your eye on him. Because you can always just that's a big thing to remember. Is
nobody's going to run out to scoop Jamal Williams.
You always want to be 1 week early.
They still have Kendry too. Jamal Williams is now like RB3 on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. 33 minutes in. Thank you so much for everybody in the chat. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday of the regular season, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. We're going to give you what you need to know right before you make your waiver claims on Tuesday nights. On behalf of Kevin Phillip Fox, I'm Brian McFadden for Legit Football. Thank you, and may you win your leagues this week.